Shepard was asking for it for three.
Well, he felt it, didn't he? He was begging.
Oh, what a play by Matt Mitchell.
To Watson, sees a lane, takes it underneath. Montana three.
This is a clinic. This is Aztec basketball.
What's good, Aztec Nation? Welcome to another edition of the Aztec Breakdown Podcast. I'm your host today. My name is Kyle. You can follow me over on Twitter at CallMeKinslow. It is great to be back after a little hiatus. If you can hear my voice now, I am fighting off the very dregs, the end of a really bad head cold that took me out for, about a week, and really kind of stuffed any chances that I had of recording before the game on Tuesday kind of out the window. But we're here today, and we'll talk about our game versus Long Beach State, a resounding Aztec victory. And then we'll also look ahead to the upcoming game on Sunday, where the Aztecs will play Idaho State at 2 p.m. At Viejas. So first, let's talk about the Long Beach game. I definitely want to give a quick little shout out to Shea Johnson, formerly known as DeMarshe Johnson, who is the starting center for Long Beach. When he got announced, it was pretty cool. He got a little kind of an ovation by the Aztec fans. The arena was packed. That was great to see. I would say it was about 90-ish% filled. Hopefully we can get that to 100% here coming up. But it was a great day to see the players. And we got some interesting perspectives, some interesting lineups, and some brand new questions that we'll all address here on today's podcast. As my phone goes off, and you probably heard that in the background. So let me turn that off so we don't get any interruptions moving forward. The starters in the game, the starting backcourt is really kind of what I want to start with. And we started off with Sean Newman and Taj DeGorville. You definitely felt like it was a dual point guard situation where they were splitting time between the two of them in terms of ball handling and production. And to be quite frank, I'm completely fine with that. Whatever we got to do in order to get production out of the offense is really what I think this team needs going forward. I definitely think that Taj looks like he's won the starting job. We'll see what that looks like when Reese comes back on Sunday. If Taj is your starting point guard, I think we all know how I feel about him and really his potential and how great he can be in that position. He had a rough game, to say the least, on Tuesday. He ended up with 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, but he ended up with 4 turnovers as well. Really what happened to him is he was in foul trouble very early on, and it really disrupted his game and didn't allow him to get into a rhythm. That allowed us to see a lot of Newman at the point, but it also really lends itself to the second big story of the night, and that is the freshmen. Oh man, the freshmen are really good, aren't they? And I'm not talking like just good and contributing. I mean, after that game, you're walking away thinking, why isn't Elzie the starting point guard? Now, of course, it's a one-game sample, but if you watched any of the preseason games, the kid flashed. He really flashed. And then in a game like this, where it kind of all comes together, he has 13 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block, 1 steal, 2 for 2 3-point shooting. He played 25 minutes. So he played the second most minutes on the team in the game versus Long Beach State and really just showed his potential. The thing that you can't teach is that point guard know-how. Elzie has a sham god dribble to get a guy on his hip that no other player on our team has. The other thing that Elzie does better than anyone else is turning the corner. And with the High Horns offense that the Aztec run, and with the motion that they run on the perimeter, this is something that was very noticeable early on, was that of your three main ball handlers, so that is Sean Newman, Elzie Harrington, Taj DeGorville, Elzie was the best in that action. Now, Taj is good at it because he can use his size and pass over the top, but Elzie can use his size and know-how to get to the basket. So they definitely offer two separate things. Those three are going to be fighting for point guard minutes the rest of the season. Sean Newman had a solid game. He didn't score, but you really saw what he's capable of in the open court with 3 assists. But the thing about Sean, I'm wondering if he's a little too small to have a crazy impact in a bigger league. It's definitely a question that will be asked kind of as we move forward. We'll see on Sunday who gets those starter point guard minutes, as the starters were the way they are because Reese was a late scratch, a corneal scratch, which that sucks. We heard rumors that he was sick kind of all week, and has someone who was sick all week too. That's definitely going around. But coming out with a corneal scratch is a weird injury. It does sound, based on reports, that he will be playing in Sunday's game versus Idaho State. And with that being said, I do think you will get a look at the kind of Brian Dutcher's vision for the opening day 5 without injuries, right? So you're going to have, I think Heidi has at least cemented himself early on as the starting 5. Miles is going to play. Odin, I think, is going to play where you don't have Magoon for the starting job. Now, we'll talk about that other freshman because he deserves some praise too in a little bit, Tay Simmons, and kind of how I see those two playing out moving forward, because I do think that's probably the biggest question, or at least the biggest glaring thing that I see as a fan and somebody who's watched basketball so long. But back to the starters, you will get that opportunity, I think, to see who that traditional lineup will be. Whoever, just slot in Magoon for Odin, and that's your starting 5 that Brian Dutcher is going to roll with. I am going to guess that it will be Taj. I'm really hoping that he's won that starting point guard position, but I understand if they want to keep seeing Newman. Just Newman has kind of been a little bit underwhelming on the offensive end from a scoring perspective. His size and really lack thereof definitely show up when he's trying to get to the basket. And is he a good enough perimeter shooter, which has been his kind of the question mark surrounding him before he came to SDSU, was his perimeter shooting. Is that going to be enough to kind of take the offense where it needs to go? So I'm hopeful that we'll get a starting lineup of Taj DeGorville, Reese Waters, Miles Bird, Jeremiah Odin, and Miles Heidi on Sunday. But in that game, we saw a couple of different things that I think are worth talking about alongside the freshmen. And like I alluded to earlier, we have to talk about Tay Simmons. 10 points, 7 rebounds, a steal, and even hit a 3 in only 18 minutes of action. So he played 4 less minutes than Odin. Odin did not have a rebound. Now that, for me, is a huge red flag. Obviously, single game doesn't really matter, but if you watch the 2 preseason games and you watched Sunday's or Tuesday's Long Beach game, Tay Simmons is thoroughly outplaying Jeremiah Odin, just across the board. A couple of things that I want to point out, and you guys can keep your eye on. I don't think that Odin has ever played in a high press, double on the catch defense the way that the Aztecs do, because he's kind of caught in no man's land frequently on the defensive side of the ball. And that's something that he will have to grow into. And really just playing in the system, you will learn and adapt those characteristics quickly. But with Tay, he might not be in the right space, but he's making quick decisions on defense. And when you're doing that and you're the superior athlete like he is, you can make up for it on the back end with your athleticism. And if he's going to hit corner three-pointers, I mean, you got to play the kid. That's really the position of logjam this year, along with point guard, is that 4 spot when Magoon comes back. I don't know if Dutch is going to play all the players, but for me, I think you have to play Tay Simmons, specifically because I think he addresses one of the biggest areas of concern from last year's team, and that's just rebounding. Tay does a great job of positional rebounding, so he's in a good spot to catch the board, and then he finds his guy to box out. This is something that I've been talking about with Compton for a while. It's the opposite. Compton is more of like, I'm just going to go get it, physical aggressor style rebound, and I think that's the next evolution of his game, would be to be that good positional rebounder where he can tag his man and he's not giving up offensive boards. But with Tay, he just jumps off the page the same way that Elzie does, but in different ways, right? With Elzie, you had that massive dunk where I think really everyone now understands how good that kid is. Players don't just do that, right? You don't just take off and smash. Who's done that for the Aztecs? A dunk like that? You're talking Winston Shepard, Jamal Franklin, Kashad Johnson, right? Those guys are bigger too. They are bigger than Elzie is. So the fact that Elzie came down the lane and just yammed it home, man, it definitely was like he's good. Kind of everyone thought that from that moment on that saw that game. And that wasn't even just the only thing that he did that was special. The play where he sham gods his guy on the wing, gets him on the hip, and gets to the bucket for a layup. That's just elite point guard play that the Aztecs haven't had since Malachi Flynn. Before that, Xavier Thames, those type of moves where you can use your dribble, use the screen to get to the hoop and score. That's easy work. That's easy buckets, right? And that's something that this Aztec team desperately needs. We need people who can score because we know our defense is going to be there. It's never left. Even without our main, rim protector in Magoon, you still saw against a significantly weaker opponent, we can just kind of snuff them out on the defensive side of the ball. Force contested 3-point shots. That's the Aztecs. Their goal is to force a contested 3, and we'll give you those bad 3-point shots. That's the whole defense is kind of built around it. And Tay's doing a great job of chasing that down. He really is. And Odin isn't. They're not necessarily on the same level schematically, fit-wise for this team. And I'm really hoping that we have a situation kind of like what you'll see in the pros, where in order to not break up the rotation, you start a completely different player in that starting role. So you keep your bench guys in the same spot. So really what I'm hoping for is when Magoon is up and healthy, Simmons is still getting 18 minutes and Odin is kind of filling in where he can get in. Right now, I don't think it's close. I think Tay is a better player. He's a better fit for the Aztecs. And I think he probably needs as many minutes as he can get. Now, he will make freshman mistakes. Elzie is same thing. They will make freshman mistakes. But when you're that good, you got to live with them. You just have to. Because as a freshman, you've got potentially 3 years to grow into the ultimate version of the player that you're going to be. And keeping them off the court for freshman mistakes, I don't think does this team justice. This isn't a situation where their positives don't outweigh their negatives. There was a situation in the first half where there was like a miscommunication between Elzie and Tay, and they turned it over. That's fine. Like, let them learn from it. Let them learn from it. Let them grow. They need to be on the court as much as possible. If you told me that Elzie was your starting point guard and Taj was the backup, I'm in. I really am. I do think that players build chemistry with their friends. Tay talked about the chemistry that he has with Elzie because they're best friends on the John and Jim show. I believe it was yesterday or earlier this week. And he said, that's his best friend on the team. And there's chemistry just in friendship. There really is. And case in point is Taj DeGorville and Pharaoh Compton. Because they're so much better when they're on the court together. They understand each other. Their pick and roll is crisper. Their movement is better. Taj is looking for Compton in his strength positions, his places where he can score. And when you're doing that, you're setting them both up for success. So I could see a world where Taj may be the starting point guard, and you're keeping kind of Elzie off the bench, but you're keeping Elzie to come in with Tay, right? The freshmen are amazing. They were absolutely the story of the game. Their ability to make shots, play good defense, get others involved. But the big thing here is energy. Last year, the Aztecs really, really missed an energy player off the bench. They just didn't have it. That is not Compton's game. He's a power basketball player. Tay might also be a power player, but he's an energy guy. He is in the ilk of a Gueca Rope, where he's going to be a little bit undersized. He's going to make the right plays. When he makes plays, it's going to galvanize the team. And having that on a roster like this, incredible, because we've got so many guys who can contribute that, I mean, you're going to have an opportunity to really open up the floor for all these other players with that energy. And I just think that those freshmen are special. You can see it. I know it's against Long Beach. Long Beach is in the 230s, 220s, Ken Palm. They're not a great team, but even so, right? They have guys who are at least athletic, who are tall, and I mean, the freshmen dominated them. They really did. Getting 23 points from your freshmen in 33 combined minutes, it's pretty good. It really is. I think that the sky's the limit for those two. And this brings me to a quick point that I want to talk about with when we were walking out of the stadium talking about next year. I don't want to hear about next year. Let's talk about right now. It's game 1. Can we keep them? I don't know. Chase Fisher's donation, the big donation, certainly going to go a long way towards keeping them. But enjoy the ride, because as a mid-major and as not a team that has a top 5 NIL budget, and even so, you see players jump ship all the time. But I think the culture that San Diego State has built, don't worry about that. Just enjoy their play on the court this year. It might be the only year. I don't think it will be, but just enjoy their time on the court, because they are special. They are worth the price of admission. They are top tier talents. Brian Dutcher has found, the diamonds in the rough, and we've got 2. Now, I know Elzie was pretty highly regarded and won Freshman of the Year. Can he be 6th Man of the Year? That's his potential. Don't get it twisted. Elzie has superstar written all over him. He just does. He ekes that swagger, that confidence, and he's got the skill set to back it up on offense and on defense. He is a solid defender. He is a tall dude, 6'5" point guard, so he can guard you with length. That's kind of different from BJ. BJ is a smaller guy, so he's got to use his speed. You'll see BJ beat guys to the spot frequently, hound them. BJ likes to get aggressive because he can make up for it on the back end with his speed. Moving on, you saw, continuing with BJ, you saw him kind of move to that 6-man off the bench scorer position, which I think was his ideal spot last year and probably will be again this year. He played 21 minutes. I definitely think if all things are going normally, he's probably going to play, the fourth or fifth most minutes on the team. He was only 2 for 8 shooting. He got tapped 5 times. So for anyone that doesn't know what tap means, it's when the ball kind of goes in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Misses where you're like, oh. And as somebody who's played basketball, those are misses where you're missing by fractions. He's not clanging it. You know what I mean? And getting tapped that frequently, he makes 3 more of those shots. You're looking at 15-ish points, and that is manna from heaven from the Aztecs. Things that you notice, BJ catching the ball in the corner on the wing and attacking the basket or shooting an uncontested shot. That's where we want BJ. Those are his skills. Even though he was 2 for 8, I want him to keep shooting. Let it rip, dude. You are the guy off the bench. We need that. We need that scoring in order to sustain us when someone like a Miles or a Reese or a Magoon isn't firing on the offensive end. Thought he played very solid. Again, I'm not worried about the 2 for 8. He got tapped so frequently, and I think that's kind of what we'll expect from BJ moving forward. Is just that excellent perimeter defense, great in transition, spot up shooting, attacking the basket, off the dribble scoring. That's the position for him. Hopefully we're able to keep him in that spot moving forward. Quick touch on Miles Bird, who played 30 minutes. 30 minutes, the most on the team. 7 defensive rebounds, 8 rebounds overall, 3 assists, 13 points, 5 for 10 field goals. But we need to talk about 3 for 5 3-point shooting, including 3 in a row. That's it for Miles. That's where he can elevate his game, is the perimeter scoring. He was awesome again on defense. His length, his ability to gamble and still get back in position is just incredible. He is a great player. He still looked a little bit out of it last game, but if Miles is putting up, I would say 15-ish points, 8 rebounds, and staying on the court, that's kind of what we need from Miles, because I think that this year's team, he doesn't necessarily have to be a go-to, all-do-everything scorer with Reese playing. I think that's Reese. Reese is your go-to scorer, and them all playing together can really do something special. I do think you'll get some quote-unquote small ball lineups with Miles at the 4 when we're playing teams who are a little bit smaller, but you know, with the size that this team has that we just didn't have last year, in that 4 spot, I don't think you'll see it as much as maybe you did last year. Rebounding has really been an issue for the last 2 seasons, and with Simmons being a really good rebounder, and I'm going to reference that John and Jim interview again. He talked about he can't really determine how many shots he's going to get in a game, but he lives for rebounding. Oh, that's music to Brian Dutcher and this Aztec fans' ears, because that is exactly what this team needs. Someone who can just go and get the damn ball after misses. And big fan of Simmons in that aspect. And then Miles Heide continues to show rebounding presence with 5 rebounds. A definite area of improvement for him that you can see already is his ability to get the rebound, and then Miles coming from the wing to grab rebounds at 8 rebounds in that Long Beach game. Just an overall impressive performance from the Aztecs, one that leaves kind of the hype train rolling on full steam. With the game on Sunday, I definitely think there are a couple things to look for, like I said. The first one being, who is that starting point guard with Reese back in the lineup, if he's full strength, of course. And then we also heard kind of some dabbles about Magoon being cleared for play. Now, he's been wearing his jersey and going along with pregame warm-ups since the UCLA preseason game. And this last game, it looked like he was moving around significantly better. He still has the huge knee brace on, and I'm wondering if that's going to stay on for the entirety of the season. My guess is he probably moves to a smaller brace now that he's been cleared for contact and cleared for play, because he was in one of those braces that's just limits your mobility, period. And there are braces that do a much better job of allowing you to be mobile. And so hopefully we'll take a look. That'll literally be the first thing I'm looking for during warm-ups on Sunday, is how do the players look? How does Magoon look moving around? And really just how does he look overall? If you haven't seen him, he looks significantly bigger than he did last year in terms of muscle. And I expect that this year he's going to have a monster season. A very successful freshman season in the belt, on his way to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think you can expect the exact same on the defense with a little bit less of the bad fouls. And his jumper looks sweet, even in warm-ups with the huge knee brace on. So hopefully that can continue as well. I don't think we'll see him on Sunday. I think you've got like a week plus. It's for the next game after that. And I think it just makes a lot of sense to hold him out and let him play on the 18th before Troy. 9 days of action, 9 days off. Maybe a few minutes against Idaho State, but realistically, I think you're probably looking at that Troy game. And I know that's not the best, because that would be one game before Michigan, and Michigan looks really good preseason. But even though the non-conference is important here, you don't want to blow the kid's knee out or suffer a setback because you played him too early. And it's a long season, and losing him for an indefinite period of time just, lowers the significant ceiling of the team. And I don't think anyone wants to see that. So I think you'll probably either see him come off the bench in a limited capacity against Idaho State, but I think you will see him play 20 to 25 minutes against Troy. And yeah, you can expect the ramp up, and I would hope, my guess is they're hoping he's a starter probably by the Michigan game. And that'll be interesting too, because it's, back-to-back days with games, Michigan and Oregon, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how they play their cards in that situation. But point guard spot is definitely the position we're looking out for. And then the minutes distribution between Odin and Simmons when Magoon gets back. And again, I personally would give as many minutes as I can to Tay Simmons. I think he's just the better player right now. I think sometimes it just comes down to that. Doesn't mean that Odin can't be a contributing member of this team with his seniority and navigating Mountain West play. But I mean, it just kind of seems fairly obvious right now that Simmons is the superior player for this Aztec squad as it currently stands. Before we hop out of here, I want to talk about kind of the Mountain West teams in the non-conference. I watched all the games that I could. So I watched the Boise State game, the Utah State game, the Colorado State game, the New Mexico game, And then, of course, I didn't watch it, but I watched the end of it. We saw the Fresno game, the Fresno State game. First, I want to touch on Boise State. Boise State beat the Aztecs in the Mountain West tournament last year, and I'm going to be perfectly frank, it only was because Magoon was hurt. In the previous 2 games that year, the Aztecs absolutely wiped the floor with Boise. Boise cannot stop anyone from getting to the basket last year, and guess what? They have the exact same problem this year. You had 2 Division II point guards who I'm telling you, the Aztecs wouldn't give a sniff to. They would not be able to score on the Aztecs. The amount of times the players, the point guard and the other guard for Hawaii Pacific, were putting pressure on the rim, they did it with ease. And that's not something that is sustainable as we continue the season. I really hope for Boise that they fix that issue. Because if they can't, they are in real trouble. If they can't stop that, the Mountain West guards are good enough. They're not great, but they're good enough where they will just eat them alive on a nightly basis. And last year, Boise's, while they didn't have any ability to stop anyone from getting to the basket, they did have a little bit more size. And on the offensive side of the ball, they had Cardenas and Dagenhart, who really could carry them to victory. And that's what they did frequently. And now they don't have either of those 2 players. And the point guard play is going to be worse. I don't care who you brought in. They are not as good as Cardenas. And losing Dagenhart is just not sustainable in order to replace them, right? I mean, look at last year. We replaced, Ledee with a freshman and JCJ and suffered because of it. You're just not going to be able to replace guys at that caliber at a mid-major school. You probably are a little bit easier at a school like Duke where you can spend the money, but even then, Cooper Flagg, not going to be easy to replace. I fear for Boise. I was really hopeful that their talent would be enough, but the players that they've ascended into starting positions, I'm just not fans of them. I know the player they call Peanut. I don't remember his full name. Carmichael, I think. He didn't really play at the end of that game, so I'm wondering if he was hurt or something. But that was very weird to see him. I think he's probably going to be, if not their best player. Meadow is a completely fine player in college basketball. He's an energy player. He makes shots. He makes smart plays. He's a solid defender. Any way you slice it, just because the kid wears glasses and is a little bit of a dork doesn't mean he can't play basketball. But if that's going to be your best player, I think you're in trouble. I really do. I think if a guy who's best as a role player is going to be your best player, you're going to suffer through the season. And Felder, I think, is the center that they brought in. Seems slow to me. Can't protect the rim. And kind of had similar issues to Heidi where he's getting stripped of the ball. But, man, I really worry about Boise State this year. Obviously, they get lucky because D2 games don't count against the metrics, but on the team sheet, they are listed. The results for the D2 games are listed, and that is a bad loss. That is a horrible loss. That will probably be the worst loss this season by anyone. And so while the metrics may be good, it's deceiving. Because if they were a quad 4 opponent, if they were the worst rated quad 4 opponent, Boise would be getting murdered in the metrics. We're talking falling 40 to 50 spots overnight. And at home, too. At home. Boise, man, you deserve all of it. You deserve all of it. Next, let's pivot to the UNLV game. UNLV lost to UT Martin. Oh, UNLV. Where do we start? they have a lot of injuries. They are really counting on Miles Che to be this program elevating player, and now he's out. If you are counting on a player who averaged 12 points in the Big West to be your savior, you're in trouble. You just are. He is a good player. He is not better than any of the 3 guards for the Aztecs. He and Newman can battle it out, but I'm taking Elzie and I'm picking Taj DeGorville over him every day of the week. But for me, I just do not like their roster. They spent a lot of money this year, too. I think their NIL budget, I saw something, was like 4 or 5 times greater than what it was last year. And then the basketball team didn't get fully funded, so they're playing with 2 scholarships short. And when you have an injury crisis, having to play walk-ons that significant amount of minutes, and not every walk-on is Kimo Ferrari. I think Kimo was a very unique situation for the Aztecs last year, where you have a guy who is a contributing scholarship player in the Ivy League and wants to use his grad year to play on a team that can play in March Madness and play in front of his hometown. I think that's a very unique situation. You look at how many walk-ons play for the Aztecs, and the answer is they don't. They just don't. And so if you're talking about a UNLV team who's relying on walk-ons, they're going to be in trouble. And on top of that, I'm just not a fan of their head coach, Josh Pastner. We're talking about a guy who was basically booted out of his coaching job for violations. And those things are not, they're not in a way, let me rephrase this. If you get busted for cheating, if you're a good enough coach, you can always come back. Case in point, Will Wade, right? Came back with Murray State after the LSU stint. Got all his Murray State team last year was one of the tournament darlings, per se. Now I think he's coaching at NC State, already a bigger job. And that was very recently. Pastner's been out for 10 years? I just don't think he's a good coach. He wasn't a good coach in his previous stint. And man, I'm worried about that program too. And then UNM handled the team that they played. The team very much is in the UCSD realm. They're going to shoot a ton of 3-pointers. They do not have the players that UCSD had last year. UCSD's team last year is better than New Mexico's team this year. And if any Lobo fans want to argue, you literally got UCSD's cast off with Coach Olin, right? They're not bad players. I do think that they have some players that have potential. But for me, I just think they're a middle-of-the-road team. Speaking of all these non-conference games, no one's playing a strong non-con except for us. I think it's pretty ridiculous, some of the scheduling of these teams. I think that USU, Utah State's non-con, I think they have one good game. I can't remember, but yeah, it's just, I feel like they need to be playing they need to be playing better teams. They just do. It's just rough. Let's talk about Fresno State next. Fresno lost to, I think, a D2 school as well. That program is awful. That might be a bottom 10 job in the country. First off, Fresno is, simply put, not a place where people want to go in California. And it's just not an attractive place to go play basketball. You're coming off of a season where the biggest story of your season was your players being involved in gambling and getting getting expelled from getting kicked off of the team and being ruled ineligible by the NCAA. the banished, right? And I don't know if they're ever going to be okay. I'm really surprised that they're in the Pac-12, especially if their football team isn't winning at a really high level, which has been their best piece, right? Their football team. I know they beat Boise, but we're in a weird year for football. I'm not a football guy, but seems like we're in a weird year for football. San Jose State lost to Utah, played fine. Utah is just better than them. Grand Canyon looked okay. Nevada looked pretty good. That was a good sign to see them look okay and have a pretty comfortable win. Of course, they're not really playing anyone of any significance, but that was good to see as well. Wyoming won and GCU won as well. So right now, I think Boise and UNLV look to be in a heap of trouble. Obviously, if you're going to lose your first game to that level of competition, I think it's safe to say the metrics don't matter for Boise. If you lose to a D2 school at home, that D2 school, I think you're probably going to have bigger issues throughout the season. Now, I heard people say, oh, there's been some other teams that came back and this and that, and I think you've seen the Boise fan base go, oh, look, we'll just be, we got to be competitive in the Mountain West and win the Mountain West tournament. I think you're probably more likely to not be playing on Thursday than you are to win the Mountain West tournament. And with that being said, is Leon going to make it to the Pac-12? I don't know if they can do better than Leon, but that fan base is going to start getting real loud if they have a couple more really bad losses. And their next game, let's see here when their next game is. Their next game is tomorrow against Utah Valley. 1 p.m. on the Mountain West Network, everyone's favorite place to watch. Currently, ESPN Analytics has Boise at a 78.9% chance to win, but they had a 99.9% chance to win the first game. So, Utah Valley, taking a look at them, just really quick to try to give you a heads up, something to watch on Saturday night if you're not watching the football game. They were the team that played the West Coast Baptist Eagles and won 116-35. So, they can score. They can score. So, I really worry about Boise. And if they lose this game, yeah, they're done. They're done. Like, pack it up right now. All right, well, we're at 43 minutes of today's recording. It was great to get back on the microphone again today. I hope to see you out Sunday. Day game. I love it. I am all about weekend day games. Been any start after 7 o'clock. 8 p.m. starts can, die in a fire. Honestly, I hate them. But yeah, Sunday, hopefully we'll see you out there with Taj DeGorville starting at point guard, or maybe Elzie, who knows? But I think I'm fully prepared for Sean Newman to be the point guard as well. But hope you have a great rest of your week. And of course, go Aztecs.